I mean, for our graduate student of the year counseling program.
No, for the student with disabilities.
Oh, FIP.
For the student disability.
What do you mean? Is it FIP or our students?
FIB.
Oh, FIP. Yeah, because we are just starting to contact the employers and they're responding. That's what we're going to have April 24th. We're going to have the committee conversation. That's the time we'll see the response. But we are contacting them right now. I'm sure that we will have success on that.
What percentage of the indirect costs does Southern give back to the PI?
Did you hear that, Dr. Don?
No.
What percentage do Southern give back of indirect costs to the PIs?
Okay, it is in the process now. They're talking about, the different figure. It's in the president's office as about 15%. And then the 15% will be divided in departments and colleges.
Are the grant dollars received for the FIP, are they guaranteed 3 years, or is it 1 year funding based on performance to get to year 2?
Dr. Don?
Yes, go ahead.
Is the dollars guaranteed all 3 years across the project for?
Yes. But you mean that $200,000 per year?
Are they based on performance?
Or is it based on performance?
Year to year.
No. You will, if your budget is $200,000, you will receive $200,000 every year, provided you make progress every year even if you propose. Because we have to submit an annual report, performance report. So if your performance are okay, there will be no questions. The money is granted. Because what you say in the proposal, and the proposal accepted, you have to produce. I mean, if you don't produce it, that means you cannot spend the money. So that money will be left.
It's always, of course, with the federal condition that the money is available through appropriation.
Right.
Okay. So the question, Andrew?
Dan was making a comment about the federal, it's always due to the federal government's appropriation.
Oh, but that's a different issue, of course. I mean, if the federal appropriation changes, that might change, but generally, if the grant is awarded, it stays that way. Sometimes they make some adjustment. But generally, suppose, for example, we had capacity building grants since 1996. There was no major issue, but the last cycle, they cut a little bit of it. That's not very much, I would say, 9 or 10%. Yeah, that's not very much.
What number of community participants would be required, or would you be looking for in order to consider that Rural Cafe conversation to be substantive?
Dr. Gunn, the question is, what number of participants will be adequate for the conversation of the cafe?
Yes.
Oh, it is about 50 to 70 people, and then you have a different group. I mean, in a table, different group, there will be a table leader. So the table leader will make notes, and the table leader will stay on the table, but the participant will move to another table. They will be responding to the same questions, but with a different leader. So what the previous participants say, they will be shared, and then the new people coming in, so they can add something. So that's how we enrich the discussion and find out the solutions.
That'd be great. In the lieu of time, one more question, Dr. Don.
I was just wondering if we get a copy of the PowerPoint, because we need to have a discussion on my campus about faculty incentives.
Dr. Don, the question is, will it be appropriate, can I send out, can research and training send out to PowerPoint?
Oh, sure. If you, well, we have PDF and everything.
Okay,
Or you can send, yeah, you can make a PDF and send it, that's no problem.
sounds great, sounds great.
Yeah, sure. Anyone can have, that's great.
Okay, Dr. Madan, at this point, the video is going to cut off, so your face is going to go off the screen. If you want to say your last advice, we can go from there.
Thank you for making this possible. And Dr. Parker here, he helped me with the technology. See you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Dr. Corey Moore giving the LU-RRTC overview.
Okay, very good. I'm going to spend the next 20 to 25 minutes providing an overview of the Langston University Rehabilitation Research and Training Center on Research and Capacity Building for Minority Entities overview. And so, in terms of the mission, and I spoke about this earlier, the mission of the RRTC is to improve minority entities, this building rehabilitation research capacity and infrastructure by conducting a programmatic line of research, examining experiences and outcomes of persons from traditionally underserved racial and ethnic populations and communities and capacity building efforts. And really we're going to do this in two ways, which is very innovative. In one way, we're conducting 6 research projects, which I'll talk about these specific research projects globally. So the center is actually engaging in research through its research personnel, in which we employ 9 researchers, some of them with joint appointments as researchers and faculty members as well. And we will address these 6 research studies in partnerships with select entities, with our partners. And as part of our peer-to-peer mentor research team academy, in which ICI folks will talk about that subsequently, we'll be mentoring and working with 6 minority entities. We hope to have 3 research fellows across each of those entities, hopefully to have a combination of about 18 research fellows across these minority entities. And they will be addressing studies that examine the experiences and outcomes of persons from traditionally underserved racial and ethnic populations and their communities as well. So we have sort of a dichotomous research agenda going on, which is very innovative. We have the center's research agenda, which reflects the left quadrant of this matrix, and then we'll have the fellows engaging in their specific research agendas at those 6 different minority entities that participate in what we're calling the IRPM, our IRPM model. And so I'm going to talk a little bit first here about the center's research agenda. We have 6 major research projects. 2 of the projects are encompassed within what we're calling Research Project 1. But I'm going to talk about these projects very globally. because I want to get to some other things in the presentation as well. But we have Research Project 1A, which we classify as a peer-to-peer mentor research team evaluation. And that model really reflects the Academy's agenda of mentoring those 18 or so research fellows from the minority entities that will participate, in URBM. And so the Academy's goal is really to build the research skills and the grant writing skills, the research grant writing skills of the fellows involved in the Academy. And so ICI will actually conduct the mentorship, and Langston University will evaluate the model. So we're going to keep it clean as reflecting a pure research paradigm. So we have ICI conduct the mentorship, Langston will evaluate the impact of this new innovative peer-to-peer model. So we're partnering with ICI, the Institute for Community Inclusion, at the University of Boston, Massachusetts, and then 6 participating minority entities or minority-serving institutions. We want to have, optimally, two minority entities involved in URBM. So we want to have 2 HBCUs, 2 Hispanic serving institutions, 2 tribal colleges and universities involved in this study 1A and study 5, which really fit hand in hand. So that's the objective in terms of the research. Now, one other, and I'll talk about that a little later on, one other major agenda of the center in terms of empowerment has to do with the provision of technical assistance services. So just because an institution may not participate in URBM does not mean that the Research and Training Center will not devote resources toward your capacity building, because we will. That's a part of the agenda. So for example, if an institution that was not part of the 6 participating entities in URBM and the peer-to-peer model, and they contacted us and they had an interest in developing a proposal in anticipation of a NIDRR RFP coming out for field-initiated programs or for the Switzer Fellowship programs, and they contacted us, and we assessed the situation and felt like this was going to be a worthy deal. We got a research team, we got a grant writing team on that particular campus that's capable of pulling this off, and we would go to our registry of consultants, experts, individuals who are experts in grant writing, who have achieved and secured NIDRR grants before, and then we would contract out with those consultants to work with that minority entity and that research team in developing a grant proposal to respond to the RFP. Okay, so the study didn't preclude the center from working with all minority entities in this context. The only issue in terms of how many minority entities we may be able to work with in that context outside of the study would have to do with the budget limitations. So that's the only thing that might preclude how many minority entities we would be able to engage. But that's Research Project 1A, so we're looking at an innovative model, and we're asking the question of how effective is this model in building the research skills of research fellows at minority entities, at HBCUs, at HSIs, at American Indian tribal colleges and universities. The medical model, we talked about the medical model this morning. The medical model for research capacity building is generally focused on individual faculty fellowships, okay, where one individual faculty might acquire a fellowship, or a number of faculty may acquire individual fellowships, and then they may work with individual mentors or individual mentor teams in developing their research agenda. They may take some didactic courses in terms of research methods and research statistics. They would do a research practicum experience, and they would interact with a mentor. What's innovative about this approach has to do with the team model. So as a research team, as we conceptualize this project, with this competitive competition, we ask the question of what might be best for minority researchers in terms of developing their capacity. And we thought that perhaps a team approach might be a better approach in terms of facilitating learning, facilitating an effective mentorship model. And so this model here actually reflects a team effort, the actual cohort of researchers in one way or another, and Mara Reynoso and her team will talk about specifically about the peer-to-peer model, but at the basis of this interaction amongst these fellows, they will work as a team. The fellows will work as a team, and they will work with the research mentors as well, which we think is innovative. Then you have Research Project 1B, a national investigation of factors that contribute to disability and rehabilitation research leaders from traditionally underrepresented populations, career development, and success. This is definitely a study that we think will continue to empower individuals from traditionally underrepresented populations of scholars. We don't have enough research leaders, disability research leaders of color in the field to address the questions that we need to have addressed. And so this study is going to look at what opportunities and what structures exist that have assisted some of the research leaders of color to be successful in their careers.